as James mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about discovery questions and why this plays such an important role in the sales process and what we can do a little bit better to improve the conversions and the conversations that we're having. So as I mentioned, discovery is the most critical part of the sales process. And the reason why is because it's where we collect the information that we're going to need further down the line as we make the sale. It's where we also plant the seed in our prospect's mind that we're the solution to their problem. And it's also where you set the tone for everything else that happens in your relationship with the prospect. So the question that I want to take the next 6 minutes or so to explore is, why do so many people get it wrong? So I'm going to talk a little bit about how salespeople get their discovery calls wrong. I'm going to talk a little bit about what people need to work on. And finally, I'm going to give you some examples of my favorite questions to ask next time you're doing discovery. So at SalesWorks, we've trained and coached hundreds of reps on discovery calls and more. So I went back through and I had a look at typically what are the top 5 discovery mistakes that we see. So number 1, it's combining discovery with demo. And we see this all the time, and typically it happens when reps are rushed for time and they're really keen to show off the product. And when we do this, we dilute the effects of your discovery and then later on the demo. The second thing is they either have a weak or no upfront agreement. There's no mutual understanding on time, on commitment or outcome, and it's just a recipe for disaster. Number 3 is reps allowing their prospects to put a hard stop on the call at the start. So prospects will often tell you they can't talk, even if they can. So a quick tip that I've learned is try asking people how are they for time instead, as opposed to asking if they have a hard stop. Number 4 is where reps give away control of the conversation. And this typically happens when they've uncovered the pain and they put the ball back in the prospect's court by asking them what they would like to do next. And I think the best example and equivalent of this is if you go and see the doctor and you've got a problem, it's like the doctor diagnosing you and telling you what's wrong. And then it would be like the doctor asking them what you as the patient would like to do next, which is completely outrageous. And lastly, number 5, it's where we don't drill deep enough into pain. So an example of this would be when you hear a pain nugget like it's time consuming and you're really happy with discovering that surface level pain and you don't go any further. So if you recognize any of those mistakes in your discovery technique, then I would love to know. Just drop it in the chat and see what mistakes that you're making. It would be interesting to share ideas on that. So discovery should be just that, discovery. And so what I wanted to talk about was how to ask high impact questions. It's quality over quantity to uncover those pain points in detail. You don't use it to demo your product. Your demo is what you show you learn during the discovery. So yes, you're going to be pushed for time. So when talking to C-levels, you only get the chance to ask a few questions before your success rates tend to drop. But if you use well-framed, open-ended questions, then a few questions is enough to uncover the needs. When you ask questions is also important as well. So top reps are going to spread questions out evenly, because if you front load your call with questions, it sounds like an interrogation and puts your prospect on the defensive from the start. So bearing all of this in mind, I think prep is so key here. So what I would recommend is constructing a framework for your discovery call. So plan it out and think about the problems that your prospect is likely to be dealing with and anticipate the objections they may bring up. And if you aren't ready for those objections, you're going to sound a little bit defensive when they inevitably come. So think about others with similar problems who you've helped. So sketch out how you'll get to the outcome you want. So for me right now, this might look something like, I'm going to be prepping my discovery call, and I know that my prospect's going to be facing problems like long ramp times, remote onboarding, and struggling to bounce back. I know that budget is likely to be an objection given COVID, so I might decide that the learnings that I want from the call are to learn more about their team structure, their KPIs, and their sales process. And as an outcome, I'd like an introduction to the team manager. So once I've sketched all of that out, suddenly I feel a lot better prepared. And once I get on the call, my priority is to unearth pain. I want to bring areas of opportunity to the surface, which I'll do by asking questions. Next comes the part that most reps miss out, which is intensifying the pain. I want to uncover the depth of the pain as well as its consequences. I also want the prospect to understand the intensity of the problem, and it could and likely be stuff they've never said out loud before. And finally, I'm going to build a vision. I want to steer the conversation away from frustration and show that there is a solution. And typically I'll do this by using social proof and storytelling. When you tell a story, we all know this in sales, it allows the prospect to visualize the problem, making it more relatable. So before I go, the last point, I'm going to tell you about some of my favorite questions to ask. And if you use these, then drop it in the chat and let us know. So first up is, what happens if nothing changes? This is great for revealing how much of a priority the problem is that you solve in your prospect's mind. The ideal response is when they are able to describe an outcome that they don't want to happen. The reply that you'd ideally like to avoid is nothing, but even then, it's still valuable information. My next question that I love to ask is, if we fix that, what would that mean? This gets the prospect talking about the value of their solution in your own words. It helps them clarify the bright future that's ahead of them when they work with you. The next one is really simple and again, incredibly effective, which is tell me more about that. When your prospects start talking about their pain, don't just tick the box and move on. Get them to go into more detail. You'll gather more essential information that will help you further down the line. And finally, another one to assess how much of a priority your solution is on your prospect's to-do list is, what has stopped you from solving this previously? The problem is unlikely to be new, so this question helps you understand why they're talking to you now and where it is on their priority list. When you ask the right questions at the right time, your sales call becomes a conversation. It creates its own momentum, and you and your prospect get the outcome you want. Thank you.